Greetings and welcome to the Force4Good Podcast. I'm Dennis Brooks, Senior Superintendent of Police here at the Constabulary Communication Network. Now, last week we began a conversation with Superintendent Kerry-Ann Bailey of the Center for the Investigation of Sexual Offences and Child Abuse. Thank you very much, Superintendent Bailey, for rejoining us.
Thank you for having me.
My curiosity is piqued now. Because when we look at some of the demographics, yes, boys are underrepresented in the data because women, of course, girls will naturally be overrepresented in the data. But are boys underreported? Because there is a culture of men not reporting sexual offenses. There's a culture of hiding it. Almost there's a greater level of shame. Are we concerned about the levels of reporting of sexual offenses against boys?
The report against boys is minimal. You are correct. And yes, we are concerned because even though we are out there, we are in the schools, they know where to report. As you said, it's a cultural thing. So people shy away from it because boys, they don't want other boys to know that they were molested, they were buggered. Automatically they feel that they'll be branded as being homosexuals because of the thing. It will carry them throughout school. They might have to change schools because of stigma being attached to them or everybody know talking about them. And a lot of the boys can't withstand that kind of pressure. The adult men too also, in a cultural way, tough up, man. Where you cry for? You don't cry for little things. You're a man. Stop your foolishness. Some discussions are not had too. And a lot of boys try to be men too early, take on some responsibilities. Yes, we appreciate that not all of us are on the same economic wavelength. So one parent may be able to give their child the name brand things, the school bag, the shoes, enough money to go to school. Another child might be struggling where that is concerned. So that child may want to do something, to engage in work afterwards, to make some money on the side for themselves, you know. And when they do that, if it is not done in a controlled way, if it is not done in a supervised way, they find themselves in all kind of situations, including sexual exploitation. So one of the things that we do when we engage with schools and communities, help the community go back. We've always said the community needs to go back to the community raising the child, looking out for the children. If you see your neighbor's child idling on the street, did you go home? Your homework, that kind of thing. Take charge of some of the things. But the heavier burden is on the parent, the guardian, to ensure that these things are done. But it will take a cultural shift for persons to be much more relaxed and comfortable in reporting these matters. But we are also doing all that we can to ensure that people feel that way, we can be reached. When you come to CISOCA, it's privacy. We consider all the possibilities to ensure that you are not thinking about whether or not the situation will go back to the community. You feel at ease, the persons there are professionals. So we'll continue to do the work that we are doing and just ask the parents that they do their part.
As a seasoned investigator, you would have seen many cases, you've seen the differences and you've seen the similarities. What are some of the telltale signs that this child may be, there could be a molestation here, there could be a serious sexual assault taking place? What are some of the telltale signs?
The signs may be different depending on the child, but in all cases there are differences. So parents need to be very observant. With females who become sexually active tend to be more open now and bolder, in the home. They are more outspoken. They are more acting more womanly, for want of a better word. If they are being molested, they tend to be withdrawn. They get more silent. You have to be going behind them, following up with them. They sleep a lot. They lock away in their rooms a lot. They are quiet in the classrooms. For younger children, encourage parents, even when you have your 3 and 4 year olds and you start giving them the leverage of bathing themselves and doing things, check them, look at their body parts. Is there any bruise here? Where did this come from? And there are some other medical things that may be going on with the male and female that
Right.
you'll observe. Some you have to be very observant to notice, and there are some things that will just come out there. And you have to take the child to a doctor. Be proactive with the
Right.
medicals, right? Be proactive so you find out from early what is happening with the child. So we look at things like withdrawal. We look at things not wanting to spend time with their friends anymore. Their friends keep coming over. They don't want to talk to them. They don't want to spend any time with them, because even though everybody don't know, you're still ashamed and you're hoping that you hiding away, nobody will find out. So that's their escape. And then
From a psychological perspective, for instance, it's sometimes said that children at a certain age, you will see regression in terms of their development. So why is this child who you know is potty trained
yes,
suddenly
peeing the bed.
yes.
Yes. So you'll have some of those instances too. That's what I'm saying. When that start happening, don't overlook it and start beating the child. Where you start, tell the child to the doctor what could be happening. You know what I mean? Depending on what the doctor finds, the doctor might refer you to speak to somebody, the guidance counselor at school. Somebody can intervene. But those are the main signs that you could look out for to tell that something is amiss with your child.
And what would you say for the children who suddenly don't want to go to Uncle so-and-so's house or Grandpa's house, or they become unwilling to be around certain people? Like, how do you handle that? Because is this just your typical moody teen, or is there something else going on?
It could be, and that is why I encourage parents to be a part of their children's lives. So you can know, is it that you're sending your child to Uncle Harry because you have to go to work and they just don't want to go, they want to stay home and use a tablet and he doesn't have any Wi-Fi there, that kind of thing. You can know the difference. If everything is well there and they usually want to go, then all of a sudden it's tears. You have to take them there kicking and screaming. Look at the telltale signs. Interrogate it.
Know your picnic.
Know your right. Know your child. So when these things, you can tell the difference.
So let's shift the conversation away from the victim, and let's take a minute to see if we can profile the perpetrators now. And let's talk about like adult perpetrators. Now, not picnic business. Who are the typical perpetrators? Of course, most of them are going to be men. But who are the typical perpetrators?
It's difficult to just look and tell, because a lot of people may think you can walk around and look at a person and say, oh, you look like a sexual predator. You look like a criminal. You don't wear a sign on your forehead. But based on the reports that we've gotten, we have a widespread. We have teachers who are perpetrators. We have doctors who are perpetrators. We have pastors who are perpetrators. We have fathers who are perpetrators, stepfathers, uncles. It's a mix. And it's difficult to pinpoint just by to tell parents or to tell adults what to look for. It depends on how you are approached and what is being asked of you and how you are being channeled in a particular way to tell that somebody wants to know more than they should know. You meet someone for the first time, or even if it's a relative and you go at the relative's house and you're used to just being there talking, moving around, and all of a sudden they start sitting close, they start hugging you too tight, they start touching you. These are some of the telltale things that, this is too close for comfort. Even though a family member should be able to hug you, but the kinds of hug, where the hands are placed when you get the hug, once it makes you feel uncomfortable, yes, those, look for those things.
I want to broach a topic that is a bit uncomfortable, because especially for women, you try to put up guardrails. I know of a particular mother who lost her husband in her 40s, early 40s, and never had another relationship. because of a fear that a stepfather might harm her girls. Women especially will take on a burden of it's my fault. This I caused this. I chose this man, and this man came in. Like, how do we manage those kinds of dilemmas that parents face, that guardians face, that persons? Because we're supposed to be protecting the kids.
It's difficult to say because each household is different, you know, each family is different. But the truth of the matter is there are some things, and you know, as you said, this is maybe an uncomfortable one, and you will get a healthy debate out of something like this, as to what would be a female role as against the male role. I remember listening to a program once, and a gentleman called in to say he is a single parent to a female little girl, and she got some kind of infection, and the doctor was doing the prescription and said to him, tell mommy to use it twice per day, rub it in this particular area. And he said, no, there's no mommy, it's me. And the doctor had a problem with it. So the discussion on the radio, persons were calling, was whether or not it's appropriate for the father to be, you know, going in the private parts of a little girl and so on. So, and it was a healthy debate.
He's the parent.
Right,
He's the parent.
He is. And so you have that kind of dynamic to treat with, you know, what to tell the father to do. Then the father is going to get offended to say, so what are you saying? You don't trust me? You know, that kind of thing. But the truth is that when it comes to those delicate parts of the things, it is usually a mother's role, to especially with the female child, and get doctors involved. You know, usually a child has a pediatrician, or you go to the clinic where the medical persons know your child, because you go regularly, not just when a child gets sick, but to do the 6-month vaccination, to do the checkups and that kind of thing.
Would you say, as a father, I mean, I don't have the experience because I only have a son, so I don't have that to consider, but what would you recommend in that case? Get an aunt, get a grandmother?
That was what was that was what the host of the program was recommending, and majority of the callers, although you still had some in support of him, in typical households where we have the father and the mother, suggesting that with those kinds of responsibilities, the mother take them on. Where there's a step parent, the mother play the role with with all of those things.
Yes.
But again, it goes back to understanding your family, knowing your spouse, knowing your child. Because if you're in your household and you're a happy family, then all of a sudden your child getting queasy around daddy. You know, your child getting queasy around the stepfather. It doesn't want to come. When the stepfather come from work, they jump in the car and they want to sit on the lap and they don't want to do it anymore. Or when they sit there, they look stiff. You start to want, you know, you have to observe these things. There are always telltale signs that we miss because we may be blinded by the love and, you know, blinded by what he's doing for the family and so on. But know your child, observe, know when things are different, and intervene early.
Would you tell persons to be more guarded and, you know, be more careful, be more slow to introduce a stepfather, a step parent into the family?
It's always good to keep appropriate pace when you're meeting someone for the first time, even as an individual, you know, get to know the person, know their background and so on. If it doesn't work out, don't introduce them to your child too early, because you don't want to be introducing an uncle this month, another uncle next month, and you know, and there goes, you confuse the child. No, they think it's okay to everybody's uncle and just to do the same thing because they have been going around quite often. Take time to know the person before the introductions are made, before it gets deep, before you get your child involved, before your child become attached, you know, to that person. That's what I'd encourage.
We mentioned the 98%, which is the men as perpetrators, but what about the 2%? What about the women? Because there are women perpetrators, because there are women who are predators of younger boys, but there are also women who are predators of our girls. And they introduce them to relationships and lifestyles, and groom them in a particular direction. And there are women who will tell you that it started when I was very young. It was an aunt who was not much older, or an aunt who, or somebody in, again, in a position of trust. I mean, that is a reality that we have to look at. What are some of the things that you have seen?
It's typically someone either within the family or close to the family for where children are concerned. So you find, as you said, the adult aunt or the stepsister or a neighbor who, and usually the parents do look at another female. And if you notice in our culture too, when you have sleepovers and so on, it's always females who are doing the sleepover. And when the group of girls come over, or the girl, the best friend, come over, you usually leave them alone, give them their privacy, so they're allowed the space and time to do anything, you know. So the grooming, though, where an adult is concerned, is usually somebody that is close, and they start, you know, with them very early. And so they kind of, and they teach them to keep secrets. You know, this is between us. It makes you feel good, so they feel good about it, but other people won't understand, so don't tell them. This is our secret. So some children become uncomfortable, and you'll see some of the signs that we spoke about. Some children get used to it and get accustomed to keeping this secret excitedly, because it's just between us. I am able to keep a secret, and I have somebody who I can run to, and this is how we are comforted. And when the adult will tell the child too that they make them feel good, you know, so you feel good about making someone feel good, especially if it comes with favors. But among children, though, as I said, you will have a lot of the sleepovers that are unmanned, and you know, don't look into it. If you see two schoolgirls walking down the road hugging or holding hands, nobody give a second glance.
No,
but if
they
you see two boys doing it, it raise every eyebrow. You understand? So these are some of the things that we do from a cultural perspective that we ignore, and it's in our faces, because we accept. Sometimes when the buses are crammed, girls sit in each other's laps.
Girls
you know?
follow each other to the bathroom,
Yes,
etc.
we do all of these, and it is normal. But it all starts from there.
But it also has the factor of television and representation in mainstream and on social media as well, where now they will now have an opportunity, because there's less public glare, to experiment in these particular ways. Do we see increasing numbers of cases? Do persons even report these things? Because they're more likely to report if there's a male perpetrator. Do they tend to report these things?
No, the reports that we get is when the parent finds out that the adult female has been grooming or fondling their female child. So the mother, mostly you find the mother taking the child in to make that report.
And in terms of, because at CISOCA you have the possibility of medical examination, is it harder to prove when it's a female, as opposed to when there's a male, and there's the prospect of penetration and damage and etc.?
It depends on what has been happening. If it's just fondling and grooming, then you won't have much to prove medically. If there's any penetration, insertion of any object or so, then we'll be able to tell that something has happened. Yes.
So let's look at something you mentioned, the wider community, and how possibly we can use the village to protect the children. What role can communities play in prevention?
There needs to be a cultural shift in how we train and raise our boys or males, and how we support families within the community in raising their children. And the communities themselves can do it, the church community. When we go out to have discussions in the community, in church halls and local civic groups and so on, we encourage these things. Mentioned earlier, we talk to families about looking out for your neighbor, being there. But while some neighbors will volunteer to do these things, and they become the perpetrators. So it's almost a twofold. When we talk to people, we try not to scare persons and become so paranoid, you don't trust anybody and so on. But all of this, it's about knowing your child, understanding what's happening, setting boundaries and parameters, keeping the discussion going, and noticing when there are changes. But we encourage communities to support, talk to the parents. If you notice that the parent is not being a good parent, you know, you're just leaving your child up, you're talking to your child in any way, allowing your child to display certain behaviors and nothing. Talk to the parents, you know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with going to your neighbor to say, you know, the way you're talking to your child, that's the way, because you talk to him that way, that is why he's like this. You know, that is why he's displaying this kind of behavior.
But super, therein lies a challenge, because we have in many communities this notion of see I'm blind, hear I'm deaf, not getting involved, make them deal with them picnic, make them deal with them business. And that is how, when something now happens in the extreme, you as the investigator go in and everybody's in your ears telling you, me didn't know, and me could have seen it, but nobody did anything, or people feel there's almost a diffusion of responsibility. I mean, how do we, I don't know if there's anything that we in the JCF are able to do, but in terms of, as part of the investigation, how do we help to fix that?
It's a collective effort. You're right. We are doing our parts. We expect that the other groups will do their part and the message will be sent. So it's twofold. You know, the family with the child also has to recognize that, look, while I'm not giving up my responsibility as a parent, I have to respect my neighbors and allowing them to be able to tell me things and don't shut off and say, left me and my picnic alone, it's not your business, and so on. And the child feeds off your energy. So if your child knows that you don't want anybody to say anything to you, and so they'll do things knowing very well that you won't care. You understand? So when they know that and the neighbor know that, then they'll just walk around and talk and not say anything. So depending on how you treat your child in the neighborhood, how you project yourself, how you respond when people talk to you, they will then respond accordingly, and then vice versa, you know. So it's a continuing discussion with us and communities, and then other stakeholders within the community to take it on to ensure that it happens. But it will take commitment from the community members and other stakeholders. It's not something that will happen overnight, because people are people, you know. But we're just going everything that we've said here today is going right back around to training up the child in the way he should go, you know?
Yes.
Yeah, and knowing your child so that you can intervene at the appropriate time.
One of the undergirding principles of how we at the CCN report sexual offenses investigations, we want persons, we are combating a narrative that says it not make sense, we report it because nothing gonna come out of it. It's so important for people to know something will come out of this. Speak to the commitment of, for instance, CISOCA as part of the JCF and its determination to address these cases so that nobody thinks nothing gonna come out of it.
Right, the JCF through CISOCA treats with every reported case that comes to us. Every case that is brought to our attention is investigated. File is prepared and brought before the court. For every case that comes to us too, we refer them to counseling. So we also offer that as a part of the process when you come here to us. All reports are treated with confidentially, and all cases will either go directly to the court or to the DPP for advice, depending on its complexity. So all matters are treated with, we turn away nobody, and all cases are treated with the strictest confidentiality.
Thank you for the work that you do. It is not easy, but it is definitely important. So thank you for your service.
Okay. Before I go, please allow me to share our numbers.
Sure.
They may contact CISOCA at 926-4079 or on our cell 224-5352, which is also a WhatsApp number. Or you can email us at cisoca@jcf.gov.jm. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. My guest has been Superintendent Kerry-Ann Bailey, the head of the Center for Investigation of Sexual Offenses and Child Abuse. This has been the Force for Good podcast. Until next time, take care.